why we're scared of it. We're so traumatized that we lean, and what we lean on is the mob. We lean on the collective. Many people have even said that our so-called ego is just not the I at all. That is just a construct of the collective.
Like the inner sense that you're talking about, do you believe that you can achieve like turning that back on through hallucinogenic drugs such as like ayahuasca or psilocybin mushrooms?
I can't say, because again, my statement would be presumptive on every individual's particular journey.
Some people can, some
Um,
people can't.
Can.
exactly. So I mean, goodness me, a man in a dungeon could do it when that will opens up within himself. So absolutely, I can't sit there and make a pronouncement one way or the other, because remember, you're talking about the individual psychology. If a person with a toxic psyche, and who's basically self-murdered himself, goes and does one of these experiences, he may blow his brains out, he may blow his mind completely. Whereas another person who has a more healthy attitude, all of this breaks down to attitude, may go and have one of the most powerful experiences of life. Isn't it true that even David Icke started his sort of journey, or if not started his journey, went on to have these powerful experiences? So again, it's really impossible for another person to dictate or to speak about it,
Right on.
one way or the other.
Yeah.
What do you think life would look like today? What do you think our lives would look like today if we hadn't been lied to or manipulated, and this control hierarchy hadn't, hijacked the way we all live?
I've thought a lot about that, of course, and I think that also the philosopher Nietzsche and to a certain degree Heidegger were very much looking into that question. And of course, they came up with it. The one thing that would have to be removed would be this incredible dependence on the mob, on the collective. They were both critics of the collective consciousness, because they said that the collective energy, and they're not really the only ones. Sigmund Freud and Jung and others have said this in their own language. But Freud, it was Nietzsche and Heidegger were the deepest, I think, and who sort of put language to this. And they basically were trying to say that, look, your ego, or that part of you that they call I, they didn't use psychological language. So, in fact, Heidegger didn't even use the word consciousness at all, because he didn't believe we were thinking at all. He said we still have to learn how to think. But in very brief summary, I think what they were saying is that because our sense of selfhood is an inauthentic selfhood, it's a pseudo-self, made up of just the approval rating, this collectivism. For instance, let me give you an example. I can't remember who it was, but there was a famous scientist or some sort of psychologist who basically said that a child even learns that it is a separate entity from the simple act of it being looked at by a parent or by other people. When the child grows up, it has no sense in the early stages that it's an individual. It learns about that it is a self because it sees other people looking at it. And then it learns to look at other people in the same way. See, by being looked at, just the act of perception tells the child slowly, I am something that I must be being looked at. And then that develops slowly onto self-looking, like the subjective idea of being able to observe yourself. So in other words, the child wouldn't even have a subjective self, wouldn't even have a clue of its own existence without other people. The point being that there's a healthy need for collectivity, right? It's in the cues and affectations and exchange of body language and words and eye contact that even gives any one of us the feeling of selfhood. So what they're trying to say is if you didn't have other people, you wouldn't even have a self, and we couldn't even possibly conceive what that would be like. But then, of course, you can go too far, because the roots of your sense of self is other people and their existence. It becomes very easy, as we've already been dialoguing in your program here. It's only one step away before that becomes extremely chronic, isn't it? It's only, because since people are the basis of our sense of self, my God, it's only the next step then to becoming completely absorbed in the collective for a sense of self. We may become even addicted to it. So then trying to go cold turkey and come off of that is a very elaborate and difficult process. And if anybody wanted to do it or try it, again, it's not for me to say what would happen. Some people may be so traumatized by that. Say, even if you tried some physical thing like removing yourself from people for 2 weeks or whatever, or even for extended periods of time. History's full of people who actually became hermits and all and completely distanced themselves. Again, I can't make any pro or negative statement,
Right.
about whether that's a good thing or whatever. It depends on the personality of the individual, So but say somebody did this just purely experimentally, maybe they'd have a complete breakdown and there'd be no self there at all. They'd be just crawling around the floor like some sort of animal. But then, of course, even animals have a sense of self. They obviously do. And so moving on to say that then, okay, say you don't, and you try to do it gradually to decipher in say you stay within society and try to gradually determine what is unique about yourself and what makes you the same as everybody else. Way back in my early first talks, even I addressed this. We know so much about what makes us the same as everybody else. I've said we have very little understanding of what makes us, unique. For instance, Michael. How many guys are called Michael in the world? I mean, it's ridiculous. So it's like what is unique about us? The clothes we wear, the names we have, the food we eat, the ideas in our head, the language we use. We're speaking English or whatever. So everything is shared. What actually then makes us unique? And is there anything at all? I mean, you're talking about the top philosophers in the world at the top of the totem pole haven't got an answer to that. They're still working on it to find out, is there anything that is actually really, truly unique about a person? Now, Heidegger and Nietzsche were, of course, implying that, yeah, there was. There is something that is authentic, unique about an individual, and their systems are there to try and show us how to attain that, And I guess that would also be somewhat what a lot of other famous teachers are trying to allude to. And then you have to know about those systems and come to your own conclusions about which one of these systems that they're talking about, which one of these means to the end is a means to an end. That becomes a fascinating area of study, So my personal belief is that absolutely. I don't think we were born by accident. I think that all of these things that keep us away from a sense of selfhood can be removed. But it's not so much that they can be removed, it's the way that they're removed. If you remove it in the wrong, it's like, remember that the $6 million man, Steve Austin?
Yeah.
If he's trying to dismantle this bomb and he does it the wrong way, the whole country's going to blow up. So it's more like, it's like that. It's like the sweat is pouring down your face, because it's not about that can you remove it. It's that if you jiggle or you do it the wrong way, it's going to blow up in your face. So the philosophical process, I mean, okay, you have one guy like Alexander coming with a freaking sword to cut through the Gordian knot. Maybe that's not quite the right way. That's a way for him, but it may not be the same way for everybody else. To approach consciousness the wrong way can make you insane. Somebody would argue that that's what happened to poor Nietzsche, and many other people that you could name. The lunatic asylums are filled of people who've actually seen the light. They know a hell of a lot, but they couldn't handle what they saw. So again, it's the way in which a lot of things are done is far more important than the what is being done. And that again, you can't really train somebody for. You can't. You can show a person how to use, like I say, a bow and arrow, right? But you can't change their perception. I mean, if they're half blind, there's nothing you can do. Even if you show them exactly how to put the string on the bow and put the arrow right and pull it back right, and even stand right. But if they're blind and their eyesight is hopeless, there's no chance of them getting to hit that target. So you can show somebody a certain amount, 50%, but they have to bring their own unique skills and perception and acuity and brilliance to it. And then you have the miracle of life. So again, pointing out forever, like you said, Alan Watts, there's been a whole history of great teachers who've shown us what to do. Krishnamurti and you name it. Or like I said, these Nietzsches and Heideggers and all, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to go and do it. They have to say, hey, this is what I've discovered. And then you got to say, yeah, well, let me try and do the experiment as well and see what comes with this. So I do believe that these dependencies are bad. I do believe that people have a pathology that can be healed and can be removed. But again, it's all about how you do it. What's your intention as to why you're doing it? As you know, a lot of people will want enlightenment for the wrong reasons. They may want it to have more power over people or whatever, or they may want to sit at the right hand of God or whatever it might be. So the reasons, the motives, may be the thing that they want might look good on paper. But do we really know the reasons why they want to do it? What's the motive behind it? Could be really, really negative.
We're all motivated by something.
Yeah. There's good motivations and bad motivations. I mean, I've always had a problem with, why would you want to be a guru? Why would you want to be a Sai Baba? Even if you have seen the light. You mean to tell me that you've gone and seen the light and then you're happy the fact with a bunch of completely clueless, auto-hypnotized millions sit in front of you on their knees looking up to you like God? I got a problem with that right away. But then I see a lot of other people don't. They think that's wonderful that he's there making all these miracles and enlightening everyone. So it's again, there's so many schools of thought. I can look at somebody and think that's a charlatan. That's a person, if even if he has the light, why would he be using it this way? But another person might come along and go, no, it's a wonderful thing, all these repressed Americans and all, they can sit there and, this is wonderful. This is really going to help them become enlightened, You get more enlightenment out of watching Star Trek than sitting at some Indian guru's feet. I don't know. So it's all perception. It's all an individual's take on it. Some people want to escape themselves so much that they'll seek for the first, guy waving an incense stick and dressed in orange to sell their soul to. There's millions of ways to escape. Working in a job from 9 to 5, looking for that success. Tyranny. You may not put a gun to somebody's head and dress in military, gear with a bunch of medals on your chest. You may want to be the next, Nobel Prize winner or something like that. That's another power trip. You see, so it can be done under the pretext of doing charity or humanity for people. In psychology and philosophy, you're always looking to motives. You're not so fooled by the outward show of things, which so many people in our world today are completely bamboozled by, the outward show. They got to think about the motives, the psychological motives. So the optimistic aspect of this does connect with the trauma period that you were alluding to earlier, because if you look at the chronology of that trauma, and again, I'm saying you don't even have to believe it had anything to do with the Nephilim, even if you just accept it was physical or whatever, planetary, whatever. It's such a short time ago that the optimistic attitude, when you study this matrix of power and control, is that, look, we may be actually healing from it. And you just can't force that healing any more than you can tell a guy who's been through a car wreck, and broken a couple of legs, to get up and walk right away. So this trauma that happened to all the human race. We're in a healing cycle. And so it's kind of really not too clever or rational to be utterly pessimistic, because these things do take time. And what I mean is centuries. So even though we maybe still see so much darkness and so much tyranny and so much control, and we lament it, and it's good to lament it, you're not meant to be happy about corruption. At the same time, it may be that the ego is gradually, imperceptibly healing in its own unique way. And that what is true and what is rich and what is real inside us never dies, can never perish. This was with the core of Nietzsche's teachings, that no matter how dark things get, he referred to it as the will to power. That will can never, ever die. It's eternal. So no matter how black things get and how oppressive things get, there will be no crushing of that light. So even if you're not a religious man, you're just coming out of a more human, sort of a humanistic school. Even in that humanistic school, they claimed that the spirit of man can't be crushed down forever, and it will come back, and always will. There's always a compensatory action in life, and one might say that the awakening that you're seeing today amongst ordinary people is part of that awakening, that the lie just cannot persist forever, and that the people will find some instinctual or some very deeply a seed of wholeness within them that they will want to actualize. One can argue that is also the case.
Right. I've heard many people refer to this time as the Age of Enlightenment, Age of Awakening, in astrological terms, which I really have a hard time with the astrology part and really seeing how that could affect us. But it is funny to see that the internet came directly at the time that's considered a time of enlightenment. And if I were to write that thousands of years ago on paper, the internet would be the perfect incarnation of that coming to life. So I do see a similarity there and a coincidence.
Well, are you familiar with my theories on the inner zodiac?
The inner zodiac. I don't think I've heard the inner zodiac theories.
Yeah, because I agree with you that if you're looking at astrology from the wrong end of the binoculars, it doesn't make a bit of sense at all, and you're into something completely false. The origins of the zodiac are internal. The so-called external zodiac that people are studying is nothing more than a projection of consciousness. And I have that information on my Taroscopes website. There's articles and interviews and a video tour that I made that will explain the origins of the zodiac connecting to consciousness. In other words, the very same architecture of your consciousness, the very ability that you even have to know the difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, even the numbers 1 to 10, how you can tell that they have an order, that they run in this order, or that the 1 is different from 7. That same ability to learn language, like Noam Chomsky speaking about the incredible innate architecture of linguistics that a child has that enables that child to then go on and learn any language, whether it's any foreign language or English or Italian. How is it that children can do this? when these linguistic skills are unbelievably complex. No computer could do it. He talks about that there